Velkommen alle sammen! Where did the toughest Vikings come from? There was a region that had always the most fearsome warriors and the most successful armies in battle in the Viking Age. I'm not talking about the Jomsvikings. They were an elite kind of warrior mercenary fortress somewhere we think possibly located in Poland as their headquarters, but they came from all over Northern Europe really. And even the Jomsvikings, they were not even as tough as the Vikings from the area that I'm about to tell you about now. So the question is not what modern Scandinavian country area was the toughest Vikings from, but the question is which part of Norway were the toughest Vikings from. Of course, I'm gonna have a little bit of bias here, but I'm telling the truth. I'm sorry, Sweden and Denmark, but you know this too. However, I'll say one thing. I'm talking about only the Viking Age here. Before the Viking Age, the Vendel period, the migration period, Sweden was by far number one, best warrior force, best technology, most victories in battle, everything. The Vendel period is actually my favorite period in Scandinavian history, and then Sweden was number one. After the Viking Age, Denmark was absolutely number one. Denmark dominated Scandinavia for almost 1,000 years, really, okay? So I'll admit all of this. We speak the truth on this channel, but during the Viking Age, Norway was the most feared military force, probably in the whole world at the time. Sweden in the Viking Age, they did some great things too. They went east and they won many great battles and they became part of the Valyrian Guard even in the Byzantine Empire. Great warriors. But they did not want any part of a fight with Norway. As a matter of fact, the only time that they came west and fought either in Scandinavia or in England or wherever, it was mostly to help the Norwegians or the Danes to fight on their side. Battle of Svolded is a perfect example of this. They also came to England many times, and we think that they fought there too. Sweden were loyal allies to the Norwegians and the Danes, and we got along well. But they did not want any fight with the Norwegians. They did not want the smoke. As a matter of fact, in the Sagas, whenever a Swedish king or a ruling class, or they were debating, or they were not getting along with Norway, they ended up arguing amongst themselves for many, many years before they actually ended up fighting. And that's even if they fought at all. They did not want to fight Norway. Compare that to the Norwegians in the Sagas. When they were called upon to fight, and when it was time to fight, they were like, let's go, yeah! And they pretty much set off to battle immediately with no hesitation. This is how the Norwegians were in the Viking Age. Also, we can see in the historical accounts from all over that the Swedes were the ones that were involved with the Kievan Rus and the Valyrian Guard, like I mentioned. But we also have a few stories of Norwegians that came to the area as well at a few occasions. And they quickly accelerated up the ranks over the Swedes and to the top of the military and became commanders even in the Byzantine Empire. Hardrada is a perfect example of this. I did a video about that. So there are sources for all this, I promise. Links will be below. This video is already going to be long enough. It takes too much time for me to go over a dozen sources for every little claim I make, but please, you can just watch my other videos. I promise I'm the only one on YouTube who cites their sources as much as I do when speaking about the Viking Age, whereas 99% of other people on YouTube are just talking garbage. So trust me, if you want to. There are 40,000 people now subscribed who trust me, and I know I'm not making things up. If you disagree with anything I say, that's cool. Leave a Viking story. We would love to hear. Write it down in the comments if you know any stories of the Vikings from your homeland, and we can all share stories. Just please cite the sources at least. And no, Vikings TV show is not a source. Now, Denmark was far more powerful at this time. They were great, and they were by far the largest force. We all know about their conquests in the west, you know, Normandy, England, and most of England was even under Danish control for certain periods of the Viking Age. The Danes were for sure the most influential Vikings, but they were not stronger than the Norwegians. The Danes actually did, unlike Sweden, they actually did fight against the Norwegians many times during the Viking Age. they lost almost every battle, and especially if it was a battle at sea, they lost every single one, even when the Norwegians were a much, much smaller force. For example, in a saga of Håkon the Good, the Danes were attacking with a massive army at what is now Frede, or Frey. King Håkon only had 9 ships of his men, and he beat the massive Danish army. Another is the Battle of Jørenavåg, which is now at a place called Liavåg. The Danes attacked here with a much larger force when Håkon the Jarl was kind of in charge of Norway, and in this battle the Danes actually enlisted the help of a large army of Jomsvikings, and still the Norwegians won the battle. Even think about the battle when the Holy Roman Emperor Otto invaded Denmark at Danavirki. The Norwegians were actually helping Denmark here, and they beat the entire Holy Roman Empire by themselves. When the Empire attacked again, just a few days later, when the Norwegians were not there, Denmark lost the battle within a day, and they all ended up converting to Christianity. I did a whole video on that will also be in the link below. On the other hand, yes, we actually do sometimes see Denmark ruling over Norway in the Viking Age at a few periods, but this was only when the Norwegians wanted it. It was not a takeover. Norway had some very unstable established kingdoms in the Viking Age and a few very, very bad kings. So Norway let Denmark actually rule over it because we like Denmark and they had some great kings. Harald Bluetooth at the start of his kingdom, at least. Svein Forkbeard, Knut the Great. They were wonderful Danish kings of Norway. But yes, Norway was the best warrior force in the Viking Age, and Denmark was the best after the Viking Age. Sweden was the best before the Viking Age. No need to get butthurt. We all have our glory days, and I'm going to do other videos very soon about how Denmark and Sweden were the best warriors at different periods of time, but the Viking Age belongs to Norway, not even debatable. So where in Norway was the most fearsome warrior force from? Very simple. Trondheim. And the surrounding kind of areas, we can also say Hardrada. Now today, Trondheim is just a city. It wasn't established though until the late Viking Age, and then it was going to be called Nidaros. But Trondheim in the Viking Age was a general area, about the same area of what we call Trøndelag now, a county. So then we also have Hålogaland, and that was basically the area extending from Trondheim all the way up to Lyngenfjord. I'm not biased, okay? I wish that the toughest Vikings were from my home, Vestfold, right here, but I'm just being honest. Trøndelag and Hålogaland throughout the Viking Age were always home to the most fearsome and powerful warriors. First, we can say this because really we have many legends and heroes from the Viking Age that were either born in Trondheim or Hålogaland, or had family lineage that was from there. We can say Egil Skallagrimson, Erik Bloodaxe, Håkon the Jarl, possibly even Ivar the Boneless, or even the Rollo, Thorehund, Hårek of Tjøta, and even Olav Tryggvason, we can say, even though he was a horrible man, but he was actually a great warrior. Also very important, you were not considered king of all Norway until you had the approval and allegiance of the chieftains, in Trondheim especially. There were many kingdoms in Norway, but if one was to gain support of the whole country, the king would have to travel to Trondheim and find some way to get support from the people there. We have many, many examples of this in the sagas. The kings would commonly take a permanent residence in Trondheim and set up a throne there. They did a lot of places, but Trondheim was definitely a popular spot to set up the throne. Harald Fairhair, Håkon the Good, Olav Tryggvason, Olav the Saint, Harald Hardrada, they all had very important dealings with the chieftains of Trondheim, and they all knew from the beginning of the Viking Age pretty much all the way up to the end, the goal was to get support of Trondheim if they were going to be a unified king. Also, we can look at the many great battles. Wherever there was a battle, either Norwegian kingdoms against each other, or if Norway was out fighting other countries, whatever side the armies of Trondheim were fighting on was almost always the winners in these battles. They were also almost always at the front lines of every battle. When Denmark invaded Norway with a massive army with the Jomsvikings on their side, Battle of Hjørundavåg, like I mentioned a minute ago, the description of this battle is basically the Trønders versus the Jomsvikings, the two strongest army forces in the world pretty much, and at the very center of the battle, and the Norwegians, the Trønders, of course, came away with the victory. Another one, which we have, it's probably the best battle of the Viking Age pretty much, is the Battle of Svolder. And here the Norwegian rebels, joined with the Swedes and the Danes, brought the fight to the treacherous King Olav Tryggvason with his army of newly converted Norwegians. Also Vendels and pretty much any other Christian warrior in Northern Europe at the time pretty much. And he actually had the Jomsvikings on his side here too. But again, at the center of the battle was Eirik Håkonason and the Trønders storming the ships of Olav Tryggvason and the Jomsvikings, getting into it while everyone else was on the outskirts of the battle kind of shooting arrows in towards the center. Another one, the Battle of Stiklestad, another one where the Trønders won back control of all Norway. I can go on all day with examples. I'll say one more thing that makes these people the toughest Vikings. The Christianization of Norway. Trondheim and Hålogaland are always the ones who resisted the longest and remained true to the old gods, to the old faith. Many examples of this. There were not just one, but many attempts to Christianize Norway, and the North always stood the longest. Håkon the Good, Olav Tryggvason, Olav the Saint, Harald Hardrada, they all came to Trondheim first to try and convert the Trønders, and the Trønders basically told them to fuck off with all that bullshit, we shall remain pagan here. And the kings were always terrified of this because they knew they could not stand up to the people of Trondheim and the army there at the time. Many times, but specifically in Olav Tryggvason's saga, he was turned away when he asked the Trønders to convert to Christianity, and he went around all of Norway trying to convert every other little place in Norway, building his army, growing like a snowball. Then he gets to Trondheim again eventually, and he tells them to convert, and they again tell him, fuck you, we don't want to, we shall remain pagan. And Olav was still not strong enough to stand up to the armies of Trondheim, even with the armies from all over Norway with him. To convert Trondheim, he had to cowardly assassinate one of the leaders and take hostages from all the other chieftains in the area to get them to convert, which even then it did not last long. Even after that, when Olav Tryggvason converted them, he had to also convert the people further north in Hålogaland. And these were some serious motherfuckers all the way up here. They were very pagan, and they were good with magic too. And they literally had the whole country of Norway and new armies from Trondheim all coming to battle. And Hålogaland fought them off in many tough battles, but they eventually did get beat after their leader was also cowardly assassinated and after hostages were taken from the nobles. So that's why I included Hålogaland in the list of toughest Vikings, because you know, we don't have a lot of stories of them. We have a few like this, but they are not mentioned as much in the sagas as Trondheim was, for example. It's because up there they were probably just not too bothered what was going on and the political affairs in the rest of Norway, and they kind of kept to themselves. But they were absolutely just as fearsome of warriors as Trondheim was, and they were pagan for much longer. Hundreds of years, in my opinion. We have records and evidence of them keeping pagan traditions alive. A lot more than the rest of Norway. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed. We can even say this today, actually. Modern Norway, people from Trøndelag and the northern counties of Norway are usually a little bit tougher, and they don't take any shit. And they are kind of the ones who stand up for their freedoms and their way of life a bit more than the rest of Norway. And also many of the best fighters and athletes come from either Trøndelag or northern Norway. Again, I'm not biased. I am not from here. I have no family in Trøndelag, no history there, no motivations, nothing. I'm just being honest. My family is from here as far back as we have records. But I'm trying to change this. You can follow my MMA career, hoping to go pro and bring some glory back to Vestfold. But yeah, that's all for today. Vi ses nästa gång.